Welcome to Season 2 of the Shekina Meditation Podcast, created by community members and friends of Shekina Garden in Pai, Thailand. Shekina communities are dedicated to creating free devotional spaces of Christian practice for spiritual seekers and travelers around the world. We post Christ-centered guided meditation each week to help you in your personal or small group practice. You can find episode show notes and other information at shekinacommunity.com.
Hello, dear friends. This is Ro and Ray here. Hello, Ray.
Hi.
It's season 3, woo-hoo, episode 3 of the podcast. We are sitting here on the cool floor of the kitchen at Shekina Garden in the warm afternoon. It's been super cool in the morning and at night.
So cold.
But this time of day, which is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's nice and warm. So we're just enjoying sitting in the cool for a moment. So as always, our patrons are supporting this podcast. Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons.
We're raising money to keep our community running, and your patronage is part of the way we do that. If you're interested to support in that way, you can find us at patreon.com/Shekina Meditation Podcast and support us there for just a little a month or a lot a month.
Whichever you prefer. Another way that you can support us is by rating or reviewing us. So you can do that on iTunes, on Spotify. You can like or subscribe on YouTube. You can also share it on Instagram or Facebook. Share the podcast in some way that helps people know that you love it, helps people know that they too can listen to this meditation podcast and be part of the things that we do here. When you support the podcast, we know that you appreciate us putting it into the world. So thank you so much. We feel it all the time.
Yeah, thank you. So today's episode is a Lectio Divina style meditation, and it's on Matthew 12:14-21 with Neil. So first of all, Neil will offer some exercises to help us find quiet readiness for meditation, getting quiet in the body and in the mind. Second, he'll guide us through the verses with plenty of space for our own contemplation. And then third of all, we recommend that you spend some time processing your time of meditation. So if you've been meditating with others, we recommend passing a stone or a stick around the circle and letting each person share something from their experience without interruption and taking time to listen well to each person. Or if you're meditating on your own, you might want to take some time to journal or draw, make yourself a voice recording, some way of processing it and letting it sink in a little deeper.
Let's begin.
So find a comfortable position to sit. There are no strict rules about how to sit. If you need to shift and move, feel free. I encourage you not to lie down, because I know I tend to go towards sleep. Seated however you like, but if you need to move, that's fine. I encourage you all to close your eyes and bring your attention to your breath. Just breathing normally and comfortably. How does it feel to breathe in your body this morning? Just noticing the sensation of breathing. How does it feel as the air enters, fills up your lungs, and as it comes out again? What sensations do you notice as you breathe? As you breathe, let's move our attention to the rest of our body. What other sensations can you feel? The cool of the wind in your skin, or the warmth of where you sit. Perhaps there are some aches or pains or stiff muscles. If you'd like, you can take the opportunity to breathe a little deeper into those spots and maybe stretch a bit. And allow yourself, your body to settle in a little more. The purpose of this first part of the meditation is to hopefully quieten our minds and settle our hearts. We've set aside this time to meditate, so let's enjoy it, let's use it. Let's let our thoughts quieten, let our hearts settle. And we can use our other senses to help with that. So let's move from inside our bodies to outside and listen to the sounds around us. Letting our focus on these sounds quieten our minds and settle our hearts. What can you hear? What's the most distant sound that you can hear? What's the nearest sound? These sounds can be a distraction if we let them, or we can use them as means to come back to the meditation if we find our minds wandering away, or our hearts returning to things that are outside of this meditation. We've all come from different experiences of the day so far. But let's leave those things that perhaps we've brought with us to this time. Let's leave them outside. And if they find their way in, then come back to the sounds, come back to your breath, and come back to the meditation. Now let's move from the outside back to the inside, and let's engage our imaginations. And imagine that you are seated in a place that is nothing but light. You are completely surrounded by light. This light represents calm. It represents safety. You are safe here. It represents confidence, quiet confidence. And it represents love. The scriptures talk about God, the divine, being light. In him there is no shadow. And if it feels good or right to you, you might like to begin, as you breathe, to breathe in this light, this calm, this safety, this confidence, this love. Begin to breathe it in. And as you breathe out, you can let go of anxiety, let go of fear or stress, let go of shame. As you breathe in the light, and breathe out anxiety, fear, stress, shame, you begin to glow from the inside. These scriptures also speak of a God who sees us, who sees all of us, the good and the bad, and loves us. If it feels good and right, continue to breathe until your whole body is filled with light. as you sit in this light, perhaps the light of God, you shift to our scripture. And it comes just after Jesus and these Pharisees have had an altercation. And it has made the Pharisees very angry at Jesus. And so for the first reading, just allow the words to unfold before you. Perhaps you've heard these words many times before. Perhaps it's the first time. But try to listen as if they are the first time. Let the pictures build in your mind as you hear the words. Try not to analyze. And take note of any emotions or any questions that arise as you hear these words. And this is from Matthew, chapter 12. But the Pharisees went out and plotted how they might kill Jesus. Aware of this, Jesus withdrew from that place. Many followed him, and he healed all of their sick, warning them not to tell who he was. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. Here is my servant whom I have chosen, the one I love, in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will proclaim justice to the nations. He will not quarrel or cry out. No one will hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out, till he leads justice to victory. In his name the nations will put their hope. What did you see? How did these words make you feel? Were there any questions that came up? Well, for the second reading, I encourage you to be curious. Explore these questions. Let your imagination, let your mind pursue why. What does it mean for you? Why did these emotions come up? Or perhaps you'd like to play with the words. Or maybe there's something that's very specific that has come. And you just want to sit on one word or phrase and chew upon it or wrestle with it. second reading, I'll read a phrase twice and then leave some space. But the Pharisees went out and plotted how they might kill Jesus. Aware of this, Jesus withdrew from that place. But the Pharisees went out and plotted how they might kill Jesus. Aware of this, Jesus withdrew from that place. Many people followed him, and he healed all of their sick, warning them not to tell who he was. Many followed him, and he healed all their sick, warning them not to tell who he was. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. Here is my servant whom I have chosen, the one I love, in whom I delight. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. Here is my servant whom I have chosen, the one I love, in whom I delight. will put my spirit on him, and he will proclaim justice to the nations. He will not quarrel or cry out. No one will hear his voice in the streets. I will put my spirit on him, and he will proclaim justice to the nations. He will not quarrel or cry out. No one will hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out, till he leads justice to victory. In his name the nations will put their hope. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out, till he leads justice to victory. In his name the nations will put their hope. hope you've had some thoughts. I hope you've had opportunity to explore, to wrestle, to contemplate. And for this last reading, you might like to distill down your thoughts, whatever it has been that has come up for you. Distill down into one or two things. But the Pharisees went out and plotted how they might kill Jesus. Aware of this, Jesus withdrew from that place. Many followed him, and he healed all their sick, warning them not to tell who he was. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. Here is my servant, whom I have chosen, the one I love, in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will proclaim justice to the nations. He will not quarrel or cry out. No one will hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out, till he leads justice to victory. In his name the nations will put their hope. Are there some things that you would like to take with you from this meditation? Or what is it that God has spoken to you in this time? And as this part of the meditation comes to an end, just come back to your breath. And as you breathe, become aware of your body. Maybe you'd like to wiggle your toes, also stretch a little bit. And as you breathe a bit deeper, become aware of the people around you, and the sounds around you. And as a sign of rejoining the circle in your own time. We can open our eyes, come back to our seated position, and we can move on to the sharing circle.
Thank you for joining today. There will be a new guided meditation available each week, so don't forget to subscribe to iTunes or sign up for our newsletter to get podcasts delivered to your inbox at www.shekinacommunity.com/podcast newsletter. Also, you can rate or review on iTunes or sign up as a patron at patreon.com/Shekina Meditation Podcast. Have a beautiful week. Many blessings to you.